Ian Black is a fellow at the London School of Economics Middle East Institute. Ian is also the former Middle East editor at the Guardian newspaper. Ian, welcome to the programme. I was going to quote some of the multi-billion-dollar arms deals that Trump signed with Saudi Arabia. But in fact, I think I'm going to ask you about morality and whether Joe Biden is putting that at the forefront of Washington's relationship with Riyadh.
Well, Joe Biden, as the candidate, promised to reassess relations between Washington and Riyadh, and he's said various things that have made the Saudis quite nervous. For example, his national security advisor or his intelligence chief revealed that she was going to issue a declassified report into the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul. That made the Saudi government really anxious. He's also made clear that he's going to end US support for the Saudi-led offensive in Yemen. But the devil is in the detail. It really is important to work out what the US is going to do. And Biden went out of his way to insist that the US would continue to support Saudi defenses against Iran and ISIS. So we don't know enough yet, but clearly it was an important and headline-grabbing element of Biden's first foreign policy speech.
Absolutely, because the United Nations also said Yemen is the world's greatest humanitarian crisis. At the moment, 80% of its population needs humanitarian assistance. Ian, how does it change the equation on the side of Riyadh? I mean, there's been official government reaction saying that Saudi Arabia looks forward to working with the US to end conflicts and faces challenges. What is Saudi Arabia now going to do in terms of trying to end this conflict in Yemen, which clearly is not going its way at the moment?
Well, the Saudis have for some time wanted to extricate themselves from Yemen, but they need to save face. The UAE, which was an important ally in Yemen, has decreased its participation in the war. Going back to a few months ago, maybe even a year. The wider picture is in the region is the Biden's pledge to return to the Iranian nuclear deal of 2015, which also makes the Saudis quite nervous. But I think that Jake Sullivan, Biden's national security advisor, made clear that the Saudis were going to be consulted by the US on this and other issues. So I think that the Saudi response is intended to, be low key, but to signal the importance of dialogue with Washington.
Ian, in your career, you'll have spoken to pretty much all of the movers and shakers in the Middle East. In my position, sitting in a TV studio, I've spoken to a fair few former US ambassadors to Middle Eastern countries. I've often asked them exactly the same question. When is Washington, D.C. going to admit that the relationship it most needs to extricate itself from is the one with Riyadh and with Saudi Arabia? And I often get a non-response, that I feel as if the interviewee wants to say something and yet can't.
Look, Saudi Arabia remains an important ally for the US. It's Washington is less dependent on Saudi or Gulf oil supplies than in the past, maybe a decade or so ago. But it's an important ally in the region, particularly in terms of the confrontation with Iran. Now, many people argue that the Iranian threat has been exaggerated, both on the nuclear side and in terms of its regional footprint. But the Iranians do have a destabilizing effect on the entire region, and I don't think that even Joe Biden, with all his talk of reassessing relations with the Saudis, is going to take dramatic steps in order to decrease the importance of that relationship.
Ian, always appreciate your contributions. Thank you so much indeed. Ian Black speaking to us from the LSE in London.